This week, I felt like making a big battle scene. And you know what they say, there's no big battle like a really little big battle. I went to a local games store that carries the Games Workshop Lord of the Rings minis, and I found 2 boxes that would work together. The options for in-person Lord of the Rings minis are pretty slim these days, so I let the options on the shelf dictate the direction of this build. It's been a while since I've assembled any Rohan foot soldiers, and definitely not since they upgraded the sprues. Now, there are a million little pieces to assemble, and it actually took me a full 2 hours to assemble what back in the day would have been a matter of minutes. I opened up the next box, anticipating another 2 hours of cleanup and assembly, but thankfully the only runner that's been upgraded in this box is Saruman and Grima. The rest of the Uruk-hai have not been updated since 2006. As much as I like the new runners and the quality of the plastic and the new poses, having only like 2 shields to glue together definitely was refreshing. After all of the minis have been nipped and cleaned of mold lines and sprue marks, I got them on some painting handles side by side, and I left 2 of the Uruk-hai out, which left me with a grand total of 46 minis to paint. We'll set those aside for now and start working on the landscape. If you're looking to build a gaming board of some kind, you can use all of the techniques that you're about to see me use, just on a larger scale. Not that I'd recommend doing large, fixed, immersive, beautiful, fun-to-build terrain gaming boards for your war games, because they take up a lot of space and they're not very practical. You can only do one setting or location. But if you do, definitely take pictures and send them to me. Post them somewhere on the internet for me to see, because I love big, impractical gaming boards. When making terrain, it's a good idea to start with a nice solid base and then put some kind of substrate on top of that. For me, most often that's going to be XPS foam, but it could be something lighter like styrofoam, or even constructing a skeletal structure with something firm on top like a wire frame or plaster cloth. Those 2 options work well for larger terrain with more elevation variation. When it comes to gluing foam, I'd recommend hot glue, polyurethane, or foam-safe superglue. The third option is definitely the most expensive by volume. When it comes to carving foam, a hot wire is nice for removing large sections, but a nice sharp utility knife will get most jobs done. Rocks can either make or break a landscape. You can carve those out of foam, or in my case, use some pre-molded rocks like these. My molds are for plaster, but resin works as well. Once the shape of your landscape is done, the next thing you'll want to do is add some form of a terrain paste to even out the harsh lines and give the surface a more organic look. I use a variety of things, but here you can see me using some paper mache mix and plaster. Sculptamold is another store-bought mix that works really well, or you can mix up your own with plaster paint and Mod Podge or white glue. The key with whatever mix you go with is to find the right thickness and avoid putting it into the fine details like you see on my rocks here. If it gets into the details, it's very, very difficult to remove. If you carved a lot of detail into your foam that you wanted to save, it's a good idea to protect that, just not with terrain paste. I would recommend something like Mod Podge instead. Most terrain paste will be fully dry after 24 hours, and then at that point you can do other touch-ups like sanding or carving. And it's always a good idea to remember managing your dust, because plaster dust is no joke. If you happen to get a little bit of terrain paste in your rock details, you can use a wire brush. That's one of the best ways to remove that. And I had a few gaps in the surface that needed some filling. I've started recently using this foam putty here for cracks and things, so I spread that around. And once it was dry, I could then add static grass. I wasn't really thinking it through, and I dumped some short grass on top of long grass in the applicator. That might come back to bite me later. Either way, I applied some static tack to everything that was going to be receiving grass, which was everything but the rocks. I used my finger to make sure that there was a nice, even distribution. I was recently given a tip by Nat1 Videos that if I shake the applicator up and down rather than side to side, it might help my grass stand on end better. I think my applicator's broken, so I can't really tell if it's working, but you guys out there with working applicators should try it and let me know, and thank Nat1 Videos for the tip. And now it's time to paint the base. I get a lot of comments asking why I paint the grass or anything that kind of looks like it's already the right color. And usually it's just because it's not the color I want it to be. And in this case, a lot of the white was actually showing through the blades of grass, which does not look natural. It may look okay to you on the screen because the green is so bright, but to my eyes in person, it did not. Another way to do this could have been to paint the landscape and then add the grass at the end, but like I said, it wasn't the color that I wanted. If it had been the color I wanted, I would have been more tempted to do it that way. I'm not sure if this shows up for you guys, but after the grass had been painted, the variation in the length of grass was a lot more noticeable, and those longer strands were definitely not to scale, which is kind of a bummer. So I think that detracts from the scale realism, but if you didn't notice, just pretend I didn't say anything. Along the base of the rocks, I added a bit of thicker foliage and some bushes, and then finally sprinkled a little bit of drier looking flocking over the top of the whole diorama. I sealed everything with watered down white glue, and to get that to spread out and evenly saturate everything, I sprayed it with isopropyl alcohol. That breaks the surface tension and helps the glue do its thing. All those steps on the landscape are going to take some time to dry, so in the meantime, let's paint up some minis. My introduction to wargaming, which I've actually heard to be the case with many others, was through the Middle-earth wargame that Games Workshop put out in the early 2000s. I played the game quite often with my friends from New Zealand. They were some of the only people that I knew where I grew up who played the game. And I really enjoyed making terrain, customizing figures, and recreating battles from what are arguably the best movies ever made. After about 2010, I really didn't play any tabletop war games until I started this channel, almost a decade later. I've done a lot of wargame adjacent things on this channel, but I really haven't dived back into the gaming side of the hobby yet. I'd like that to change though. Once I have a larger workspace, the plan is to build big, impractical game boards, build new armies, dive back into the Lord of the Rings, maybe dip my toe in Warhammer, historicals, and of course build a lot of terrain for the Wild Imaginary West RPG. As I was building this diorama and painting these miniatures, I was contemplating not gluing them to the diorama, but keeping them on their bases so that I could actually play a game with them. But the reality is, if I need them to build some armies at some point in the future, I can just pull them off the terrain and throw them on some new bases, and they'll be good to go. The only thing that will be wasted is the terrain and the time and materials that went into making it, which in the grand scheme of things is honestly not that much. Once the detail work and all of the highlights had been added to these Rohan foot soldiers, the painting was done and it was time to get everybody removed from their painting handles. At this point, my little Rohan countryside was completely dry and ready to be filled with little soldiers. And while I glue these in place, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons. The last thing to do was to paint the sides of the diorama with black 3.0. After that, I called it good. That is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out, as always, to my patrons. You guys are the best. Have an awesome week, everyone. I'll see you next time.